Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Salena-Hawkins, and you are
Zola Salena-Hawkins.
Zola. You know, I knew your name.
I hope so.
But we're just joking with each other. Here's the way it begins this evening. For those of you who've been following our YouTube presentations on Monday night, you'll know we've been trying to combine a number of things. A moment in time with literary readings from stuff that I've written. We thought we would go at it in a slightly different way this evening. Before I get into what it is that I'm about, I'd like to start off what we are about. And I'm running out of money to buy books over at Barnes and Noble, but this afternoon we just got this book, The Story of Black Lives Matter. The Story of Black Lives Matter. Got it?
Okay, I'm coming in.
Okay.
There you go. I see it. Gotcha.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. It deals with how it is that the Black Lives Matter movement started, and I'll let you buy it and read it for yourself, rather than try to describe what it's all about.
But you would recommend the book?
I'd recommend it highly.
Okay.
I've had a chance to, quick read it, well, scan it, but it covers all these significant events over a long period of time having to do with our struggles for civil rights here. And as an African American writer, I can never, ever suggest that we don't need to know more about what has happened so that we will know how that relates to what is happening and what is very likely to happen in the future. And they do it very well in this book, Black Lives Matter. I thought I knew something about what Black Lives Matter meant, because I've been following events, as most of us have, who are called Nishinti.
Who's the author?
The three of them. The main author is a woman named Veronica Chambers. I'll find her name so I can pronounce it. Yeah, Veronica Chambers with Jennifer Harlan. But they give the names of the three main ladies here, and I won't get into that. Read the book and find out. But Veronica Chambers, who is a Panamanian American, Afro-Latina, who speaks excellent Spanish, writes excellent Spanish, and reads excellent Spanish, and speaks more fluent Spanglish. She makes that the point. It's an excellent book, and it takes you all the way from, they start basically at Trayvon Martin, and then go to Ferguson with Brown and Breonna. You could just go through the whole, period and series of names. Concerning what it is that I want to talk to you about, concerning the book that I've written, the books that I've written, we're focusing here on two of them. One of them is called the Ghetto Sketches, and I'm replying to a number of questions that have been asked, including questions from you, yourself, Zola. Like, hey man, what, give me the story. Give me the story. I started writing Ghetto Sketches in 1962. 1962. Eons ago, 1,000 years ago. And I was focused on the idea of telling the stories of people who lived on a certain street in a certain neighborhood. It just happened to be the west side of Chicago, but it could have been the south side, it could have been the north side. But I was looking at how I could possibly talk about these people's lives in a way that other people who've never lived in their neighborhoods would understand. And I came up with a number of ways to do it. The winnowing process, the screening process was meticulous because I didn't want to have just anybody. I wanted to have definitive characters. For example, I had a character in mind named Sweet Peter Dita, pimp. The African American community has had a certain kind of parasite infest the neighborhoods early on with men who were guilty of selling women's bodies. And I started asking, well, how did it come to be? Because we come out of a tradition where people were selling our bodies. So how could you come out of slavery and have some man said, I'm going to sell this woman's body? And I kind of traced it back to a West African thing, which entitled a man to have more than one wife. Polygamy existed in West Africa a long time before the Muslim Islamic thing came. So if a man was wealthy enough, his wealth could be measured by how many wives he had, which meant that he had women who were able to plow the fields and harvest the food and make more money. They didn't call it money, it was wealth, in whatever form you want to call it. So with the disruption of the African system of dealing with things, the transportation of our people from West Africa to this place didn't transplant certain kinds of DNAs. This is the way I'm placing it. So that you wind up with a guy who says, okay, here I am in this horrible place, and I can make a living, I can make an income by having more than one wife. Okay, well, okay, what do you call them? They're not your wives. Well, let's call them my hoes. Let's call them my hoes. Well, how do you do that? He doesn't have the philosophical or the religious right to call them his wives. They're not his polygamous household. They are his women who somehow or other are encouraged or coerced or enticed into providing him, the household, with an income. I'm not going to suggest philosophically or religiously or intellectually that this is the way that African American pimpdom started, but I'm going to suggest that there was an element having to do with our ancestral DNA that allowed some men to justify their enslavement of their own women with what they came from. And I've heard this. You know, guys, well, I knew some of them, guys who would say, well, hey, if the bitch wasn't doing the right thing for me, she'd be doing the wrong thing for herself. And a whole lot of this warped knowledge. So that supplies me with a character that I call in Ghetto Sketches, Sweet Peter Dita. There's some other stock characters that I've used in the book. One of them was a lady named Big Mama. Big Mama in the West African pantheon might have been considered a griot. But since female griots have not ever been emphasized and publicized in the same way that males have been, in the New World, the male griot seem to have receded and been pushed back, and the female put forward, so that nobody talks about Mr. Jones sitting up his window all afternoon looking out at the scene, you know, looking at everything, and later on telling people what had happened all day long. But Big Mama is the one who did that. In addition to that, she had a certain kind of ethical value system that she laid down on people when she could say things like, all right, I saw y'all. I saw y'all doing that, and y'all better stop that. They don't give that same kind of importance and ethical values to men. Somehow it wound up being Big Mama. I've never lived on a block in any African-American neighborhood, New York, Chicago, Mexico City, you name it, when they didn't have a Big Mama. So I put a Big Mama in it. Coupled to that, there were people who were just simply ordinary, workaday, up and down people. You know, they went back and forth to work. They might have been considered slave labor units. They did. Mr. and Mrs. Ferguson, for example, in the car. I'm talking about people on the block that I've written about in Ghetto Sketches. I've been given a lot of praise that was unexpected because I didn't write it with the idea of seeking that. I wanted to try to tell the truth about some neighborhoods that I lived in, at least one of them anyway. And this one particular neighborhood was representative of a whole bunch of neighborhoods, come to find out. If you lived in Chicago in, I don't know, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, 80s, even now, it's become a little bit more cyber-oriented. You know, everybody's got their cell phone out and so forth and so on. Prior to that, it was not the cell phone, it was Big Mama who passed the news on to you or somebody else. The Ghetto Sketches that I dreamed up in my head in 1962 took about 10 years to develop. So that by 1972, the novel, I guess you could call it that, the novel was published by Holloway House Publishing Company, one of the really god-awful publishing companies anybody ever heard of. But at least they had good distributorship and they were able to reach the people I wanted to reach. And I'm saying that by saying members of my family who would never think about picking up a book. But since I wrote it, and it was called Ghetto Sketches, and they were related to it, they read it and they had arguments about it. Like, for example, my Aunt Mamie and my Aunt Mary and my Aunt Bessie said, well, I'm Big Mama, and I couldn't argue with them. I had to flee back to the West Coast. Excuse me while I pause for a sip to moisten my breath. So, 1972, the book was published by Holloway House. Holloway House published it and cooked the books. I think they must have had a wok because they cooked several books at a time. They may have added a little bok choy in there and a little bit of sesame seed oil. But in any case, the book got out there. At one point, I was having meetings with a man who had the Guthrie Theater in Minneapolis, Minnesota, to do it as a play. The problem they had is that they just simply, this was an Englishman of all things, of all people. They couldn't image really what an authentic ghetto was like, and they were not about to go there and try to find out. I'm suggesting to them, you couldn't have an authentic experience in the theater with a play that did not have aromatics to it.
Mm-hmm.
People who live in ghettos understand that there's a stench there. There smells. Let's not call it a stench, the smells. You know, somebody's cooking chitlins over here, somebody's burned some beans over here, and there's some piss over there, and there's some shit back there, and, you know, and so it has an aroma to it. I was reacquainted with that kind of thing the first time I went to Ghana. And I came down out of the airport into the neighborhood and I smelled something and I asked somebody, what is that? They bake corn a lot on grilled corn, you know, roast corn. But no, I understand, I smell this corn. What's the other smell? So well, the sewage system is not working very, very well. So people use toilet paper, throw it in a pile, and on the end of the week or maybe on Tuesday, they burn the toilet paper, so they're burning shit. And it smells like what you might think that might smell like. So, having said all that, I'm going to read, not the Ghetto Sketches, 2021, with this, I think, marvelous cover by Tony Gleeson, by Tony Gleeson himself.
All right, hold. There we go.
If you think you're looking at Joy Reid from MSNBC on the right, then you're right. If you're looking at John Lewis in the middle, right. If you're looking at Stacey Abrams over to the left with her arms crossed, right. An academic friend that I've known for, I don't know, 30, 40 years now. Somebody who, boy, this is a weird white guy. He started collecting what people want to call street lit material way, way back when. And I think he represents maybe the white man of the future. Because rather than just simply say this is black lit, this is valuable literature.
Well, Justin...
Oh, sorry to interrupt you.
Yes, excuse me. Well, Justin did use the original Ghetto Sketches in his English Noir class.
That's
At
right.
the University of Nevada in Reno. And so, a few years back. And so, he obviously thinks that it has academic credentials.
Academic, yeah. So, having known each other, for a long time, and knowing that he was familiar with the material, I asked him if he would do the blurb for it. He did that, and well, let me read two things before I get on to the next book. This whole thing is not going to last very long because I don't have a lot to read from. I just wanted to praise my contribution to the literary world.
Hello.
And hope that everybody is appreciative of what it is that I'm talking about. Okay. Ghetto Sketches 2021. Zola Salena-Hawkins, who drives a fellow hard. If he's lazy, if he's slacking along. And she said, rewrite that. Not the whole book, but some part of it, to let people know that Dr. Margaret Burroughs endorsed it as the first forward, and that because it has historical significance, you need to have it out there. So we're going to do it. But in addition to that, since it represents what protest novels traditionally represent, it's going to say something about what happened before and after George Floyd's murder. How many other African Americans were murdered. It goes all the way up to the oldest, to the, I think, an 8-month-old baby. And that's some of what's in Black Lives Matter, which has been a catalyst for people becoming so outraged that we can no longer allow the white racist power structure to kill us indiscriminately with no responsibility attached to that. We're through with that. And since we live in a democracy, since we are living in a democracy, we can either vote them out or kick them out. I'd like to see them kicked out. But let's see what happens in the coming years. What Justin says about the Ghetto Sketches is this. Together with Iceberg Slim Pimp, the story of my life. And Donald Goins is dope fiend. For those of you who are hip to what they want to call street lit, Iceberg Slim and Donald Goins are two of the premier people in that genre. He's putting me in sacred company, so to speak. Odie Hawkins' Ghetto Sketches pioneered the genre of street literature during the Black Power movement. Set against the backdrop of a vibrant Black urban community, the novel follows the diverse stories of pimps, junkies, preachers, revolutionaries, and everyday working people. Hey, just what I just said. Written in the vernacular of the streets, dig it? And working with experimental literary forms reminiscent of modernists Ralph Ellison and James Baldwin, Hawkins' brilliant novel studies the lives of Black Americans struggling with police brutality, poverty, and institutional racism. A lyrical and gritty novel, the revised Ghetto Sketches 2021, is required literature for any reader of 20th century African American fiction. And I want to throw a shout out to Justin Gifford, professor University of Nevada at Reno, and say, Ahhhh. Now, going right along, oh yes, look at this woman here, right here. Can you see this?
Let me zoom in again.
One in the blue coat there.
Yes.
Who is that?
That's me.
Oh,
Zola Salena-Hawkins.
Zola Salena.
Yes. Hawkins.
I keep pulling her out from behind the camera because this is the person who is doing so much to squeeze these matters out of the tube, so to speak. Going right along, here we are. Oh, okay, this is another one. This concerns the Ghetto Sketches, and it's a customer review. It's a top review from the United States. I got 5 stars out of 5 stars.
It's on Amazon.
Amazon. So they could buy it from Amazon.
They certainly can. Buy it now.
Odie Hawkins was writing about Black life long before it was popular to do so. That means I could go back to ancient Egyptian times.
Maybe not. Maybe not that far.
Before Pharaoh number 3.
Okay.
Ghetto Sketches sets the tone and the ambiance of all things to come from this gifted author whose prose is lyrical and descriptive of time, place, and persons. Now I can't joke anymore because what this person is saying might be what I would say about myself. You know, if you're feeling confident in who you are. No one reading Ghetto Sketches comes away empty-handed. Hawkins informs his characters with the kind of traits that makes them come alive, because we know people like that. Hey, we do. Those of us who do.
Yes.
They are casual acquaintances, associates in most cases, and if we're honest with ourselves, even family members. Hey, Uncle John, Uncle so-and-so, so-and-so, Uncle. It is good to read an author who writes with honesty, even if that honesty stings a little bit. I know, I got the letters. My aunties argued about who was the one in the window. It was me. It was me, man. And Bessie said, it was me. Because I'm the one been dipping Gary's snuff on me. Like, you ain't never dipped no snuff. How you gonna say that's you? It had to be me. I fled back to the West Coast. Because if it stings, it means we've been there one way or another. And whoever that person is, they don't have a name attached to it.
It's a verified book purchaser.
Oh, man, all I got to say is, thank you for that, because it very seldom happens. If you write within a certain genre, for example, I'm having a really interesting time justifying my title as the author of the Pan-African occult. Somebody says, okay, wait a minute, what's that mean? Well, I have 3 books at least. The Snake Doctor, and Shackles Across Time, 3 books. But the Pan-African occult genre seeps into that and bleeds into that by way of other books that emphasize a belief in spiritual values that we've never had here until the African was imported here. And then hooked up with the Native Americans who shared a lot of these same values. You know, when the Native American says the great Manitou, they're not talking about a god, they're talking about that tree, that rock, that forest, that river, all of the things that white Christianity, I can be bold enough to say that white Christianity overlooked. And they just simply wanted to have somebody they could paint who looked white, you know, like the Jesus Christ with the blonde hair and the blue eyes, and call him the Neapolitan. But I don't want to get off into that. So we wind up with a spiritual system, or spiritual systems that focus on something that we had when we were brought here and has never been completely eradicated. You know, it's one of the reasons why you can go in certain households and people will have candles in the corner, or they, you know, put flowers up in front of Mamie's picture every Thursday. It's not Buddhism, you know, it's African spiritual practices. Now, having gone through all of that, I'm about to come to the end of what I'm talking about.
Okay, how much is Ghetto Sketches? How much does it cost?
$300,000, $15,000.
Oh, Odie Hawkins, not the original one.
It costs $13.99.
Okay, that's for the book. And
Yes.
the e-book is how much?
The e-book is they don't say.
In the bottom?
$3.99.
$3.99.
It's $3.99. Oh, I'm sorry. It's $13.99 for the soft cover book, and the e-book is $3.99.
Yes, okay. Well, thank you very much. And they can be purchased
So those who can't afford
now on
$13.99.
Amazon or at Author House.
Can I wind it up?
Yes, please.
This is my latest book. It's being dropped sometime in October.
So this month, more than likely. You know, they just have to get back to me. We've approved everything, and so today was Labor Day, so more than likely Vince will get back to me tomorrow.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, and he'll let us know. And then it should be available by mid-September.
Oh, that's right. Wow, this is September. Oh, man, time has passed so fast. You know, when you forced to spend your days indoors, it sort of goes pretty fast, especially if you're doing as much stuff as we're doing.
Exactly.
I know how busy you are, so I don't want to talk about that. But yeah, I can see that. Okay, the book is called Conversations with Likka Sto Rufus. And this is the cover, which was done by our friend, the artist Carlos Spivey. Am I pronouncing his name right?
Yes, I believe so. And, all right. There we go. One more time. And very good. Thank you. Cool.
Carlos Carlos, I don't know what to say about you, but when you write a book and you have an artist design a cover, I have to first of all acknowledge the contributions of the inimitable Salena-Hawkins, who has used photos, and on occasion, I think she has really done one of the best covers of any book I've ever had published. The Snake, which was totally abused by the editor, but we're not going to go into that. That's history. But when you have something recent, and the brother understands what the material is about, and gives you a cover that memorializes that, then I have to say, Adukwe.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Modukwe.
And also, Carlos has had, he just came out of an exhibit in San Francisco, I believe, where he had an exhibit.
I think it was actually in Oakland.
Oh, in Oakland, okay, Oakland. And is an exceptional artist. He also has greeting cards that with his pictures, and so his his artwork.
Get all you can right now and frame them, because they're going to be considered treasures in the years to come. Trust me.
Okay.
This is why I'm going to buy some more as soon as I get in touch with him. Anyway, conversation with Rufus. I'm trying
Was it
my
conversations with Rufus or conversations with Likka Sto Rufus?
Well, there's a difference. I'm sorry.
Yes, indeed.
Conversation with Likka Sto Rufus.
Yes. Okay.
Well.
Must have it right, especially if you want people to purchase the book.
Conversation with Likka Sto Rufus. The book really is about the character study of a man that we may or may not know, but well, think about it.
Can you read the blurbs?
Oh, that's a good idea. I must say you're right on it this evening.
Right.
Set against the backdrop of the COVID crisis and the 2020 presidential election, Conversations with Likka Sto Rufus follows the incredible story of Melvin Montaigne Dixon III, a.k.a. Likka Sto Rufus. The novel tracks Rufus's harrowing journey as a terminal rat in the jungles of Vietnam, a prisoner behind bars at San Quentin, and a dope fiend on the streets of Los Angeles, recounting 50 years of black history from the ground level through the eyes of Rufus. Conversations is ultimately a protest of the legacies of white supremacy in the age of Trump. It is written in the witty, urban style we have come to expect from Odie Hawkins, and is why he is known as the underground master. Justin D. Gifford. Boy, this guy writes some. Oh, well, let me read the blurb here. He was finishing that. Odie Hawkins, man, is one of the original members of the Watch Writers Workshop founded by Bud Schulberg that was established in the wake of the Watts Rebellion, 1965. His mentors were John W. Block, Louise Merriweather, A.L. Jenner, Robert Lewin, and Harlan Ellison. He started his writing career with the invaluable assistance of Dr. Margaret Burroughs, the founder of the DuSable Museum of African American History in Chicago, Illinois. The man is having a phenomenally prolific writing life. He has written screenplays, radio scripts, television here and in Ghana, West Africa, stage plays, newspaper columns about short story collections and 33 published novels. A few more than that, huh?
I think so, but go ahead. Well, 33 published, you have 8 unpublished.
He may not be famous, like Famous Amos, but he has received critical acceptance in several fronts. He was one of the panelists, Wanda Coleman, Emory Holmes, Dr. Roland Jefferson, and Professor Justin Gifford at the Modern Language Association Conference at the Hilton, LA Live. His books have been used in writing classes in colleges, universities, and prisons. Hawkins takes credit for being the originator of the Pan-African occult, and as exemplified by his books, Shackled Across Time, The Snake 2020, and Snake Doctrine. His works continue the business of taking readers into the unusual to tell us who he is.
Yeah, so that's the last part that you read was also on your website, which is www.odiehawkins.com. And you also have an author's page on Facebook as well as on Amazon. And so,
Appreciate you saying
not getting into any further with Likka Sto Rufus, why don't we wait and let that be a whole episode of its own?
I'd like to do that.
All right. And then you can even read a little Likka Sto.
Hey.
How about that?
I'll say to you,
All right.
it.
This. Ciao.
Till next time.
Till next time.